Blood and Salt by Kim Liggett. Read to you by me. Chapter 13. Wreathed. Slowly, Beth and Rhys led me outside. The heat from the lit torches kissed my shoulders. I felt an overwhelming calm wash over me, a lightness in my soul. I stepped onto the cool, damp grass, feeling it between my toes. Every step I took seemed to root me deeper into the soil, like a memory being reawakened from deep within my cells. The wind found me, pressing the soft conch sheath against my body. Even with the susurration of the crowd, I never felt so comfortable in my own skin. The women spun me around fast, at least a dozen times, and then set me loose. They giggled as I stumbled around the field like a drunk. I studied myself and took a deep breath, shutting out the rest of the world and letting my senses take over. Breeze blew in over the corn. The stalks rustled like endless layers of a stiff taffeta dress. I knew the choice had already been made for me, but there was a part of me that still wanted to know how I would have felt, who I would have picked had the choice been mine. I stretched out my hands in front of me, my fingertips grazing the chest of the first eligible in line. A flutter of excited whispers went through the gathering. I walked down the line, skimming my fingers across their chests, counting as I went. Each and every one of them smelled pleasant and harmonious, earthy, mellow tones, nothing like the boys I was accustomed to. Number 5 smelled especially good, notes of cardamom and freshly oiled saddle leather. Intriguing. I reached number 9, the one I was supposed to choose. This was the most appetizing yet. Oak and honey. A scent that could envelope me like a thick wool blanket on a chilly night. This was it. The moment had come. I opened my mouth to say the words when the wind shifted. Something gripped me. My blood seemed to throb in my veins. At first, I thought I was going to fall into another conduit memory, but it was deeper than that. An inexplicable urge swept through me like a fever. Locked on to something nameless, I moved away from the line, weaving through the sea of people. Everything in me seemed to reach toward the scent. My blood, my skin, my bones, my spirit. I brushed my fingers against a man's chest. He flinched, every part of me frayed, like a frayed wire, just waiting for a spark, aching for it. I whispered to him, Vikuakuta, Ukakista, Tarak, Kirakt, Wakui, Ak, Kirak, Kuahuri, Kutua, Kuga, Patua, Akita. As soon as the words came out, I clamped my mouth over my mouth. Kato. I had just spoken Kato fluently. The crowd erupted into panicked murmurs. I couldn't stand not being able to see. I pulled down the sash that covered my eyes. My heart leapt into my throat. It was him, my junkyard crush. For a moment I forgot about our bitter parting. His hair was pulled back. I could have gotten lost in the lines of his face, but his eyes held none of the warmth from earlier. He was like a stone wall, impenetrable and cold, as if we'd never met. Beth rushed me. You can't choose Dane, she said as she tried to ease the sash back over my eyes. He's ineligible. Dane? I repeated his name. That was so much better than Goober. He's a mixed, she whispered. What does that mean, mixed? Anyone with traces of Coronado's blood is considered a mixed, she whispered as she tried to steer me back to the line. A larkin with a mixed is forbidden. Is that why you ran off earlier? I asked, searching his face for answers. But he only gritted his teeth. She's ruining the ceremony, a woman hissed behind me. I glanced over my shoulder, scanning the stunned crowd, my eyes settling on a line of very anxious-looking boys. You've met? A girl's voice startled me as she sidled next to Dane. Lauren. She snaked her arm under his, hanging onto his bicep. Yeah, I met him today in the junkyard, and... She's a conduit, Dane interrupted me. She doesn't even know what she's saying. She's confused. The way he said the word conduit felt like an insult, like another word for crazy. I wanted to argue, but there was something in his eyes, a pleading look that made me hold my tongue. I could see it was important to him that our meeting stayed secret, but why? He's right, I said, tightening my grip on the wreath. I am confused. A look of relief washed over him, briefly softening his features. Poor girl, Lauren said loud enough for everyone to hear. You shouldn't have to go through this with your condition. Leave her alone, Dane murmured. I tore my eyes away from Dane, but when I looked down and saw his hand, all I could think of was his thumb dragging across my hip bone. A flush swept my cheeks, and then I realized it wasn't just my name or eyes that made him turn away from me at the junkyard. He belonged to someone else. I felt completely gutted. "Aya, she's not meant for you," Beth whispered as she placed the sash back over my eyes. I let her do it this time. I didn't want anyone to see how hurt I was. How could someone I just met wound me so deeply? "No harm done," Beth called out to the crowd in a strained sing-song voice as she led me back toward the line of eligibles. "Trust me, number 9 is perfect for you," she said under her breath. "I'll lead you right to it." Suddenly I forgot how to move my legs. Beth had to half carry me down the line. "I didn't know you spoke Caddo," she said as an aside. "Neither did I," I exhaled. "I knew bits and pieces from my mother, but the language would just come to me." Beth nudged me in the ribs, and we came to a stop. "My body, my soul, I commit to you," I said in monotone. Even though it was just for show, it felt strange saying the words aloud, like I was betraying myself in some way. Oak and Honey eased the sash away from my eyes. I was stunned. Blonde, towering, and broadly built, with dark gray eyes. He was like a Nordic prince. He bent his head forward, and I placed the wreath there. When he straightened, one of the leaves flopped down on his face. "Sorry about that," I sighed, as I reached up to tuck it back in. "Apparently I suck at wreath making." "It's an overrated skill," he said. "I'm Brennan Mendoza." He smiled, seemed to beam from every pore. "I know this must be very strange for you," he confided, "but we don't have to walk the corn. All you have to do is smile every once in a while, dance with me, make the old folks happy." "I can manage that." I smiled up at him, and I meant it. Brennan took my hand, and we were flooded with good wishes and congratulations. I stole a glance at Dane, but his eyes stayed focused on Lauren. I knew he couldn't be mine, but when I touched him, every cell in my body reached out to him like I'd known him for 1,000 years. Like I'd finally come home. Then I thought of my mother's words. Maybe this is what she meant by blood and salt. Salt in the wound.